What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's first exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Anthony.
And for this first exclusive segment, we're doing this for last week. We're going to be doing this all year. Our waiver wire pickups. We just saw a couple games go down. The first 2 weeks in fantasy football is where waiver wire is most important. And there are some pickups this week that you guys need to be looking at in order to farther yourselves in your fantasy football season.
With that being said, be sure to check out all of our previous content from last week. This video is coming out Tuesday. We got waiver wire pickups dropping today. And then we also got our biggest takeaways and what we learned from last week dropped on the podcast today. Be sure to check that out. Tomorrow we got our best bets video dropping. Last week was a little rough. We went 3-3 in our best bets, leading our cumulative season record so far to 10-4, which ain't too bad still. We still won some money last week. I lost money. I actually owe you $5 still. I just remembered. So, 10-4 in our best bets so far. Keep checking us out. We're pretty good track record for best bets so far. Thursday, we got our 1v1 wager score updates, and we got our stardom situms for the week, so be sure to check that out as well. And before we get into anything, let's thank our sponsor.
Little Italy Pizzeria. We're sitting in a restaurant right now. Be sure to come in, check it out. Get yourself, it's an extended menu. They got tons of good stuff. You can go pasta, you can go cheesesteaks, you can go pizza, etc. Get yourself a beer if you're of age. Get yourself a soda. Come have lunch. Come have dinner. Bring the family in at the restaurant.
Bring the family in, pretty much. We'd love to have
Come
you
watch
guys.
Football Sunday.
Sunday
TV
football,
there,
Monday
TV there,
football.
TV there.
1, 2, 3, 5 TVs in this room. Stadium seats where we're sitting in. We got a bar, everything. Come check us out. Show us some love. Showing the family business some love is the same as showing the greatest podcast on turf love. We're a big family. We appreciate you guys, all the love you guys have been giving us. With that being said, don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you're new, comment your guys' thoughts, any questions you guys have. We love you guys interacting with us. We appreciate it. And that leads me to my first waiver wire pickup. Just dive right into this one. So for this week, probably one of the hotter names. He is rostered in 66% of leagues. So, I mean, this just varies by league depending on how many people or who's in your league or not. But Marquis Brown. Marquis Brown is a guy who we didn't really expect to have as good of a year as he did. I mean, guy out of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, love Hollywood. But, I mean, he's had a very lackluster first couple years in the league. But this year, he's been breaking out. Where he's at, I mean, it's only 2 games in. I don't want to overreact. But, I mean, in fantasy, he's got 20 points last week, 23 points last night. He's getting the ball in the rushing game. He's getting receiving yards. He's catching touchdowns. He's getting a lot of targets from Lamar, which is the biggest thing. He's a guy that, in an offense that we didn't really know we were going to see now that Lamar Jackson had receivers, had Hollywood Brown. They bought in Sammy Watkins. They got Rashad Bateman, who's on IR, who we haven't seen yet. But it seems right now, Hollywood Marquis Brown is the guy for Lamar. Lamar's been targeting him a lot. They've been getting some explosive plays going, getting him open downfield, letting him just turn the burners on and beat DBs down the field. So if Marquis Hollywood Brown is on the waiver wire this week in your league, I highly recommend picking him up. Me and my dad were just talking. My dad's in a big money league. Told him go put in for Marquis Brown on the waiver wires on today to get tomorrow on the waivers. So Hollywood Brown, if he's there, he's the hottest name on the waiver wire right now. So go get him.
Yeah, for me, I like Hollywood Brown as a player. I've always been a fan of him since coming out of college. The problem is we fell for this last year. I'm not sure kind of what's going to happen, but as of right now, Hollywood Brown is the best receiver on this team, with Mark Andrews, Money Mark. But Hollywood Brown is the best receiver on this team as of right now, and he's getting a ton of targets. He's getting a ton of big plays. So I definitely wouldn't fault you for picking up Hollywood Brown in waivers. But that leads me to my first waiver pickup. Probably one of the higher upside pickups that you could have season long, and that is Justin Fields. Now, I know that Justin Fields didn't do lights out when he came in for Andy Dalton. I 100% get that. But Justin Fields is a player that could potentially be a top 10 quarterback easily. He could even be a top 5 quarterback on certain weeks, just because of his ability to rush the football. Andy Dalton's banged up. It seems like Justin Fields is going to get the start, and I'm pretty sure they face the Lions.
Is this that week already?
I'm pretty sure it is.
That surprises me.
I'm almost positive it is.
Yeah, Detroit and Green Bay's on right now.
Coming into the season, I was a big fan of Justin Fields and Trey Lance. I thought personally that one of them was going to, take over and be good. The Bears do
play the Cleveland Browns this week.
They play the Cleveland Browns this week, and then they got the Lions, Raiders run. The Browns have been allowing points, though. I mean, we've kind of seen that. Houston Texans has put up, 20-something on them?
Yeah,
30?
about 21, 28, I
With
think
Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor, and friends.
Tyrod Taylor's the man, yo. Are you serious right now?
He's the man, but
you almost had
hurt.
to take him in our pick'em for the next 3
He
weeks.
was hurt.
We were getting a little nervous.
But no, with that being said, Justin Fields, I definitely wouldn't fault you for picking him up, especially if you're a team that waited late on quarterback. I personally believe that Justin Fields could end up finishing as a top 5 or so quarterback just because of his rushing ability. We've seen it with Jalen Hurts. Last week, he didn't do anything passing, but he ended up getting 80 rushing yards and a touchdown, which significantly, gave him a high floor and saved his day. We see it with guys like Lamar Jackson, a top fantasy quarterback, tons of guys.
Yeah, I like that one actually. Justin Fields, I know a couple of people that actually in the last round of the fantasy draft just took a shot and drafted him and have stashed them, waiting for this moment that he's going to finally come in and start. It still seems as though Chicago's committed to Andy Dalton. I saw Matt Nagy said that if Andy Dalton's healthy, he's still the starter, which is fine because according to the greatest podcast on turf's plan for starting Justin Fields, this is Andy Dalton's last week. Then next week, Justin Fields comes in. He's got the Raiders, who have been very surprising so far. If you want our full thoughts on the Raiders, be sure to click the link below to check out our podcast for this week. Went in depth on what we learned last week where they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. But yeah, I can't fault you for that Justin Fields when I know people have drafted him in the later rounds just to stash him. And if he's on the waivers and you need a quarterback, I've been in situations where I've streamed quarterbacks like every week where I've had to stream a Daniel Jones, a Kirk Cousins, a Phillip Rivers at the time, a Matt Stafford at the time. Off the waivers every week, Justin Fields may be that guy to grab this week and stream him for the rest of the year until he goes on a bye week. But my next guy is a guy who, this is more of a, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a, one where it could go good wasting a waiver on him, or, I mean, he could get no love next week. But I'm buying into the hype. I know it's only week 2. Cordell Patterson. I know. Cordell Patterson. In Yahoo Fantasy Football Leagues, fun fact, he can play as a wide receiver or a running back. He can go in either slot. So that's an upside. I mean, Cordell Patterson, he had 6 targets against the Bucs last week. I mean, it seems that when the Falcons go down in games and they start throwing the ball, Mike Davis doesn't see much time in Cordell Patterson. They like to use him in the backfield, coming in and out of the backfield. He still gets the ball. I feel like I've seen him run the ball a lot more than I've seen Mike Davis get the ball, especially going down in these games when they do get down and they're playing from behind. So that's something to watch out for. Cordell Patterson, he's not your every week starter unless we continue to see this 6 targets, 50 receiving yards, about 5-6 rushes on the ground. If we continue to see that and the volume he got a good bit of red zone time and red zone snaps against the Bucs. Kind of surprised me a little bit with Mike Davis, but Cordell Patterson, he's a lot more dynamic in the offense, especially for a team that's defense is god-awful, so they will be playing from behind. So if you want a guy, hold on to, maybe start him. If the Falcons have a tough game and they're probably going to get blown out and you throw Cordell Patterson, I don't think it can go wrong personally. I'm grabbing him. I put in for him already. After what I saw his performance yesterday, call me buying into hype a little too early, whatever, but I like Cordell Patterson as a waiver wire pickup this week.
Yeah, I like Cordell Patterson also. I believe he had 7 rushes last week, and if you can put a potential starting running back in your wide receiver position, that's kind of huge. Running backs usually dominate, so if you can go ahead and plug in like I said, a running back in your wide receiver position, start 4 running backs in a week, that's kind of big. With that being said, my next guy I'm picking up is a running back, and you see the jersey, he is a Cowboys guy, and it is Tony Pollard. Now, I personally thought that Zeke was going to get the sole majority of the touches and kind of just be just Zeke again. But it looks like Dallas is going to take the conservative approach and play 2 running backs, and I personally think that this offense is good enough to hold both of these running backs. I think Tony Pollard's going to be more the 3rd down guy, and we've seen in fantasy situations before that the 3rd down guy works. I mean, people start Kareem Hunt and they feel pretty confident about it. I'm not saying Tony Pollard is Kareem Hunt, but I do think that the Cowboys will score more points than the Cleveland Browns, and I think Tony Pollard being such a great receiving back that he is a good pickup. We've seen how explosive Tony Pollard is. We've seen how good he is receiving the football. Zeke is he's not going to take a bulk of the carries all season long. They've kind of made that a clear plan. And we see that around the league with a lot of teams. A lot of teams use a 2 running back system no matter how good their running back is. The only team that really doesn't do it is probably Panthers, Titans, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of about it. So yeah, with that being said, I see Tony Pollard being involved tremendously, especially with a guy like Michael Gallup out. That's just one less person that you have to worry about stealing touchdowns. I could see starting Tony Pollard. I could see the Cowboys having 2 running backs that start on your fantasy football team. Definitely if you get up in a pinch and you need somebody on bye, Tony Pollard against a bad defense in a high-scoring game.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, we saw what happened when they played the Chargers, and I'm just trying to figure out why DeAndre Swift isn't starting.
They played the Chargers, didn't score that many points, and Tony Pollard still had 100 yards rushing, a touchdown, and a good day. So,
yeah, and he's only rostered in 38% of leagues, so I mean, he's most likely out there because there's a lot of fantasy football leagues out there, so he's probably out there for you. Go ahead and pick him up. I like what they did with him. I do agree what you said that they have the 2 running back system, and it just goes to show about how what everyone thought Zeke was back this year and Zeke was going to be the sole guy. It just shows how much they like Tony Pollard and how much they still want to get him involved. And also a similar situation to a Cordell Patterson. If they're in these tight games where they're going to be throwing the ball down the stretch, we saw that Zeke, they're not throwing a halfback screen.
Jared Goff.
Quintez Cephas, wow. Is that Kevin King again?
Kind of looked like he pushed off a little bit.
Kevin King is terrible. But yeah, I mean, if they get in these tight games, they're not throwing a halfback screen to Zeke. They're throwing it to Tony Pollard, and they're going to let Tony Pollard run behind Tyron Smith and Zach Martin for a 40-yard screen pass, not Zeke. So I like that pickup. And moving on to, was this my third and final?
Yes, sir.
My third and final waiver wire pickup. This is a very, years past, this is kind of an ugly waiver wire pickup. But he's having a very good year this year. He seemed to develop a relationship with my favorite Patriot of all time, Mac Jones. Just kidding. Touch more on Mac Jones on the podcast this week. Link in the description. Can DeAndre Swift get in the game? James White. Now, I know Patriots, they like to run a committee. They like to do all this other stuff with their running backs. I know Ramondre Stevenson was a healthy scratch last week. James White took that RB2 role, that third down running back role, and Mac Jones loves the guy. James White could see a similar year he saw in 2017 with Tom Brady when James White had his career best year when he was the Patriots' second leading receiver behind Julian Edelman, when he was their sole running back. I mean, yeah, Damian Harris is good, but James White sees most of the passing downs, and the Patriots have been throwing the ball a lot more, trying to utilize all the money we spent in free agency. And if Mac Jones don't like what he sees, he's checking it down to James White. He's got a lot of touches. He was heavily involved last week, and if Ramondre Stevenson continues to be a healthy scratch, or if he don't get going and he can't bounce back from the game he had last week, then James White could be in for a monster season like we saw when he was playing with Tom Brady.
That's fair. I'll go ahead and jump to my last guy that I'm probably picking up on waivers, and this guy, it could 100% work out for you, and it could 100% not work out for you.
Yep.
It's really just shooting your shot. This guy could potentially be a top 15 receiver in football. He could also not even be a thought. And that is Rondelle Moore out of Arizona. Now, we saw, he just posted 7 receptions for 114 yards and a touchdown. We saw that. Rondelle Moore also got the ball in the 10-yard line, was about to score, fumbled. Stuff happens. He's a rookie. Rondelle Moore could potentially be a stud receiver in fantasy football just because of the fact that he's on a high-powered Cardinals offense. He's the number 2 option, which tends to work out sometimes when you got D-Hop getting covered by a tough corner. Rondelle Moore is a guy that you can kind of put anywhere. You can give him screen passes. You could even hand the ball off to him. You could throw it to him deep, throw it to him short, and he'll make plays happen. Rondelle Moore is a stud. We've seen his college highlight reel out of Purdue. We've seen him. Look, nobody's doubting his athleticism at all. The only doubt is how many touches he's getting in this Arizona Cardinals offense. And in my opinion, any touches in this Arizona Cardinals offense is a good touch. So, Quintez Cephas, pick him up.
Dropped him on the pine.
Joking. But no, with that being said, Rondelle Moore, look, If you're not on board with him, don't pick him up. This isn't a Rondelle Moore will be a stud. This is I think he will be. And if you end up picking him up and he is, then you could potentially have a league winner. You could also have somebody that you drop in a couple weeks, which is kind of how it is.
And actually, if you go back to our NFL draft videos, draft season, our draft reactions, and our grades, we both love this pick to the Cardinals because of how dynamic and how bought into the Cardinals hype we are. He fits perfect. They have Chase Edmonds. He can fly around. They got Kyler Murray, who's the early candidate for MVP. They got D-Hop. They got Christian Kirk. They have all these dynamic, speedy guys that can do a lot of stuff, and Rondelle Moore fits that to a T. And essentially, we've been saying this forever now. So, I mean, Rondelle Moore could be a breakout guy. I'm keeping an eye out for him on the waivers. I probably can guarantee if he has another week, this upcoming week like he did last week against the Vikings, he probably won't be on the waivers. So, I mean, if you got an extra spot or you got someone injured or someone you can drop, I recommend, me, Anthony Lantrio, and you, Ryan Sawyer, recommend going to grab Rondelle Moore and either keep him on the bench or, I mean, even start him. If he has another big week, he could be making a case for a start every week. So
this also gives you an excuse to watch the Cardinals game and watch the MVP Kyler Murray play football.
And I think that's going to wrap this one up now.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out all our other content this week. Be sure to keep tuning into our videos, bringing you guys the most 100% accurate fantasy football, NFL insight every week to you guys. I keep bringing it to you guys. Yeah, like, subscribe, show us love, and be sure to check out Best Bets tomorrow. Check out the podcast and all our other content from this week and the week before.
See you.
Peace.